It rained last night, it's getting warm, the flowers are starting to bloom, so let's head out to the backwoods and see if we can find something to shoot. So I'm hiking up to this area that's called the Haunted Tree. My 5-year-old named it the Haunted Tree, and I asked him, what's it haunted with? And he laughs and he says nothing and then walks away. But the nice thing about the Haunted Tree is there's a bunch of spring beauty by it. So this is the legendary Haunted Tree. Okay, we had that little visit to the Haunted Tree, and I just found some spring beauties down at my feet, so I'm gonna kneel down and see what we have. The fortunate thing is, before we bought the house, somebody had opened this area up hoping to attract deer for deer hunting. So now there's all this grass that's grown up in this part of the yard, and it doesn't make it really easy to get good clean pictures of flowers, so you have to do a lot of gardening. Generally, I like to have the flowers up against something so that they look better. These are out in the open. I think maybe I'm going to try to take a few pictures because I don't know how long the clouds are going to last, and I'd rather take pictures with clouds than if it was sunny. So the one thing that I noticed on this composition is it's really weedy, and that's from all of that grass that's in this area. It's just kind of coming into the picture from any which way, and it's very bright, so it's extremely distracting in the photo. What I'm going to do is garden. And what I mean by gardening is I'm just going to remove the debris and the dead pieces of grass out of the picture. I'm not actually going to take any live plants and pull them out. Okay, so I have this recomposed and gardened, and it's looking pretty good. Except I don't really like the composition anymore. The thing about spring beauties is that they're extremely small, and because they're so small, even the 105 macro lens doesn't quite get close enough. So I'm going to add a couple extension tubes, which will let me get it closer to this flower and make it appear slightly bigger in the picture. And I think that's going to make it stand out and be a little bit more simple and eye-catching. So one of the other things that I did when I added my extension tubes was I put a macro rail slider on there so that I can adjust the focus in and out. It makes it really easy to recompose and refocus and get the right distance away from a flower. So to use this thing, you just turn this knob, and as you rotate it, it gets closer, or you can back it away as well. And it really allows you to fine-tune your composition and get better focus. It's especially important when you're using the extension tubes because a slight movement of the tripod can really throw everything out of whack. So I'm hoping to find some bloodroot out here. I found some that's not in bloom. It would be nice to just find a good example of a flower completely in bloom, because I don't have an image where I'm shooting straight down on a bloodroot flower. I've always kind of do those creative because I like the designs of the leaves. They're kind of funky. So let's go see if we can find something like that. I actually know where there's a flower, where there's a bloodroot, and it's just kind of over here. So I don't really have to go that far. You can see my equipment back there in the distance, and the bloodroot was just right down there. So it's not very far. This is a fantastic spot in my backyard for flowers. There's just all kinds of good wildflowers this time of year out here. Just garden away some of this dead grass in here so I can get a little bit of a cleaner straight down shot, and I don't have any straight pieces of grass distracting. This dead grass ends up being really bright in the picture, and it's going to stand out more than I'd really want it to stand out. There's some leaves and old dead leaves and duff in here too that I'm just going to pull out. You can see that the ground is just completely covered in moss under all this stuff. So before they cut down the trees and denuded the area, it probably was pretty nice forest floor, open, mossy. So this whole swamp back in here. In fact, right over here, it's just, if you walk through that grass, your feet sink down through water. So it was a shame that all of these trees ended up cut down or and opened up for deer hunting. So there's a lot of weight on this ball head, and even though it's a super nice ball head, it keeps slipping a little bit. So as I move the camera around, grabbing the ball head instead of the camera body actually helps quite a bit from movement. So what ends up happening if you grab your camera up here, loosen the ball head, and then move it around, is the camera will slip back into place as you lock the ball head in position. If you grab the ball head down below the camera, it tends not to move as much, so you can get a more exacting framing. And this is really close-up shot, so the framing is extremely important because there's no room to crop after the fact. It's getting pretty sunny out now. This might be kind of the last shots of the day. There's no clouds left in the sky. It's essentially just blue sky, which, you know, like it's been such a miserable, dark, damp, dreary winter that you think I'd want a blue sky and sunlight, but for flowers, you don't really want a blue sky and sunlight. Now, usually I would bring like a reflector and put the reflector over it, but it was cloudy-ish, so I didn't think I'd need it. So I'm going to finish up on this bloodroot, and that'll be it for the day, I think. Well, before I went down, I decided I better get an angled shot at this bloodroot, and I'm glad I did because it's really beautiful. It looks like the leaves are just wrapping around the flower and trying to protect it, but the flower's popping out, and the sunlight is just, it's fantastic on the flower right now. And actually, my tripod leg is causing the leaf to go into the shadow, so it's working pretty well to make the flower just pop out. So it's just a fantastic shot. So hopefully this looks great in the computer. I know it's tough because there's you know, such limited depth of field with these extension tubes that maybe it won't work, maybe it will. It's just so pretty, so pretty. I love bloodroot. It's just such a cool flower to photograph. Whew. Man, it's bright out here, but just seems to be working on this flower. So one last thing that I want to try here is I hauled this thing with me. So this morning everything was just covered with this like beautiful coat of rain. There are drops just kind of everywhere, and well, that doesn't last very long when it's sunny out. So you just got to bring your own, I guess. And I'm just going to spray the snot out of this thing and take some pictures. Yeah, don't feel shy about putting some water on these things. You can mist it, so this has a fine misting too. And it also has a, there we go. Oh, adding our own rain. We'll just add a little rain here and there. Woo! And now let's see what that does for us. So, oh, that's kind of cool. So just walking back to the house, and you're not going to believe what I found. I found a false morel, which is kind of a crazy mushroom. Looks sort of like a brain. And, yeah, there's one on the ground. It's a big one too. So if this was a real morel, I would be picking it and eating it tonight. But with these false morels, you don't want to eat them. So there's a poison in there that's essentially the same thing as the fuel that they used on the space shuttle. If you can imagine ingesting that. The weird thing is like people actually eat these things. And I don't know why you would risk such a thing, but some people eat them and they don't die. And some people eat them and die, and then some people eat them for a long time and they don't die until they actually do. So I do not recommend snacking on these. So just look around for real morels, but this is a false one here, and yeah, it's a big one too. So let's get a picture of this thing. Well, what do you know? It's cloudy again, so maybe I should be out there shooting some more. But you know, it's May in Minnesota and the first mosquitoes are showing up, so I'm gonna head inside. But it was great shooting with you today. And remember, you just gotta flow your own flow. We'll see you later.
yeah.